Hello, everyone. We are about to get started. Welcome to the Building and Perfecting a Social Media Strategy workshop. Before we get started, I have a few notes on using Teams. The menu bar should be located at the top of this screen where you can find the chat icon to join today's conversation. To ask questions, type it into the chat box on the right side of your screen. I encourage you to keep this open throughout today's breakout. Today's workshop will be structured as follows. Angelina will discuss using social media platforms to expand your brand's reach, and then we will dedicate the second half to Q&A. You can start typing in your questions at any time. I will now turn it over to our moderator, Elizabeth Peterson, the Director of Audience Development for CO.
Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everybody. As Hannah said, I'm Elizabeth Peterson. I'm the Director of Audience Development here at CO. And part of my role here is actually managing CO's social media accounts and developing strategies that help engage all of our social audiences. So I will be right here taking notes alongside with you as Angelina gives her presentation today. We want to thank you all for joining today's workshop. And again, as a quick reminder, you're welcome to submit your questions at any point as they pop into your head during Angelina's presentation. You can just go ahead and type them into the chat, and then we will be getting to those a little later on in the presentation. So during today's program, we're going to discuss social media platforms to expand your brand's reach, and we're going to look at some tools that can help you measure engagement on social media. And now I would like to welcome Angelina Darasaw, who is the founder and CEO of C-Suite Coach. Come on and welcome to the stage, and you can get ready to share your insights, Angelina. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm such a fan of the Chamber of Commerce and all of the amazing work that you all do. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Really excited again to chat about one of my favorite topics. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about perfecting your social media strategy. But I want to just set the stage and let you all know that I am speaking not as a social media strategist. That is not what I do by any means at all. Actually, we'll share a screen in just a second. Jackie will share some slides, and I can tell you a little bit more about some of the things that we do as a company. So, yep, there we go. So C-Suite Coach is the name of my company, and we have been around for 6 years. I launched my business in 2015. Why this topic is so important to me is because as a business owner, having a strong social media presence, and I'm going to even, bring it full circle and just talk more about the theme of being intentional about your marketing strategy and your brand is one of the key drivers of growth for business. So I mentioned I started my business 6 years ago, and when I started, I was a team of one, and I've been able to grow and expand. And I largely credit that to being really intentional about how I use social and how I use other pieces of a digital marketing ecosystem to be really intentional about getting out in front of my clients and growing the brand. So I'll just tell you a couple quick, and we can really breeze through these. The mission of our company is we are really about making sure that we're working towards accelerating equity in the workplace and in business. And we do this by sourcing coaches to Fortune 500 companies to develop Black and Latinx communities. Next slide, please. So here's just a snapshot of some of our clients. One of my biggest clients by far that I'm thrilled and proud to work with is Google. We've done quite a lot of work with them. And one resource that they have, which has been highlighted by Chamber of Commerce, is our digital coaches program. So I'll drop that link in the chat at the end, but that's free resources for small business owners. So a snapshot of our services: we offer coach staffing, program design services. So we do the operational support for programs, content design, leadership development, content, and delivery. And we can keep going. Snapshot of our team. I want to say shout out to Jackie, who's here. We also have one-on-one coaching resources and coaches across the country. So here's a snapshot of some of the amazing coaches that work with us. Next slide, please. So now let's get to what we are really here to talk about today, which is really thinking about your social media strategy. And I have laid on my own interpretation to this quote by Audre Lorde. Anyone know who Audre Lorde is? Feel free to use the chat. I'm checking it out and watching. If you all have questions, comments, love for you to engage live because I want this time to be for you. But this quote says, if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies and eaten of me and eaten alive. So I just think about that so much. There's so many different quotes I could use. I also think about the idea of if a tree falls in the forest and no one heard it fall, did it really fall? Just this idea of what is reality and what is perception, and how much does perception come into reality? And the key thing that I think about when I hear this quote is we have the opportunity to present in front of people how we want to be perceived. And that is one of the things that can be really challenging about social media, but also can be really exciting and really fun, is we have the opportunity. So, I say if a tree falls and no one hears it, I also say if a business launches and no one knows it launched, did it really launch, right? So think about that. Next slide, please. That being said, when you're thinking about your social media strategy, I want you to always think first about what is the brand of your company, right? Do you think about this intentionally? And this is really important for business owners to be thinking about, because when we launch a business, we're typically not launching because we want to be marketers. I mean, unless, of course, you're launching a marketing business or a social media strategy business, which is good for you. You have, an advantage here. But most of us, we're launching not to be marketers, or maybe that's not the kind of business we're launching. We're launching because we want to offer another type of service, or we have created a product that we know is going to change people's lives. And what happens is we're often so busy in the nuts and bolts of running our business that we're not thinking about a strategy for our brands and for our social media. And that's really critical. So I want you to just be thinking about, as the CEO of your company, and I will say this, even for marketing businesses, I've heard folks say all your clients, you're developing their marketing plans. Well, then you may not have a whole lot of time to put into developing your own company's marketing strategy and social media strategy. So for every business owner, I just have to throw it out there that it is important for you to be thinking about how you're going to show up online, how you're going to show up across these different platforms. And it always begins with having an idea of where you are and where you'd like to be. And so where you'd really like to be is towards what, is the end of the spectrum, where everyone knows and understands the value of your work. And that should come across every platform where your brand has a presence. So if I'm on, and now there will be a different strategy, and we can talk more about this when we get to the Q&A, across every platform, right? There's not a one size fits all model. The rules are different on different platforms, but there should be a consistency in the voice that you have. And what should also be consistent is people getting a clear picture and perception of what it is you do in terms of the work that you do. So why is a brand important? It can add so much opportunity to you. So when I talked about how social media has really transformed my business and how I've gone from 1 year getting started as a solopreneur to now being in a place where we're growing and we have a team, a lot of that growth I attribute to having a strong social media presence and growing and being really intentional about our voice. So there are a couple things, and now I'm going to be just dropping a couple tools, so you'll have to take notes and pay attention, that I attribute this to. So the first one is, we can, stay on the previous slide for just a second. The first one is, I want you to think about making sure that you have a strategy around getting some press hits when you can't afford a publicist. So I will tell you, one of the things that we have, I have a spreadsheet that has every hit in the press that my company has had since we launched, and there are hundreds and hundreds of hits. So how did I do this all without a publicist? Well, I will tell you. I did it by using a free tool called Help a Reporter Out. The website is helpareporterout.com. And essentially what it is, it's a group of journalists. They have to write news stories every day, and they want fresh perspectives and fresh ideas. So they're looking for sources, and you as an expert in whatever it is you've created or whatever your business does is a potential source. So what I would do after I got a press clip. So when I was just getting started and we were really focused on career coaching at the very beginning of the business, and it was just me, what I would do is every time I got a press hit, now, and I'm going to talk about networking a little bit, and you're like, what does networking have to do with social media? Oh my goodness, so much. Who you follow, how you engage, all of that makes a difference. So what I would do every time I got a press clip is I would thank the journalists across different platforms, find them on LinkedIn, find them on Twitter, thank them, and then share out the clip. Now, what that then does is, well, if it's on Twitter, they can easily retweet it. If it's on LinkedIn or whatever platform, they can reshare it. And now, not only have you thanked them and you're starting to build a relationship with them, but you're also getting the opportunity to have your expertise and your thought leadership shared with not only your audience, but their audience as well. So it's really important for you to think about, one, getting your voice out there. How are you going to show up as a thought leader across different platforms? And then also I want you to be thinking about, how do you amplify your voice? And so that's why who you follow, who you tag, all of that stuff really matters. And again, we can chat more about that towards the Q&A. Next slide, please. So everyone and everything has a brand. And so something else I want you to think about when you're thinking about your strategy here and how you show up is a strong brand really boils down to something that can offer and be perceived as a certain type of value. So for example, when I think about Beyonce, I always think about performances that are so good, I will spend my rent money on concert tickets, right? Like that is one of the things I will do. When I think about, Apple, I think my phone's not even broken, but I need the newest because I know the new technology is going to be awesome. So I'll probably spend another couple $100 every year to get the latest phone, right? So when you're thinking about your perception and how you show up online, I want you to not just be thinking about what we use the term often vanity metrics. And so vanity metrics are the things that make you feel good, right? Like the likes, the retweets, the follows. Those things are cool. But what's more important and more interesting to me is also the value, right? So will people show up when I'm having an event for my company? Will people buy the product that I'm selling? Will they buy it without trying to haggle me over the price? So how you establish your presence across social platforms is really what begins to determine the value people are willing to pay when they want to do business with you and engage with you. And it also can open the door for other opportunities as well. So I have just a quick formula that I'll share with you, and we'll go through this and then leave most of the rest of the time for questions. But the formula that I want you to be thinking about when you're thinking about your brand on social or the brand of your company on social, it's profit, perception, and people, right? So your profit, I always say, is what is the value? Remember when I said in the previous slide, people easily understand the value in what I do. Can people really understand the value? Why does your product or service cost what it costs? Am I willing to pay it because I see that it's such a strong offering? I'm willing to buy it. I see the value. You do this so well, I'm willing to open my wallet and pay for it. And then the perception. Do I see you as being the best? Do I see you as being a provider of a service that I need? Are you an expert truly in what you do? What do I think about you? Because that influences my buying consideration, right? And then I want you to think about people. Well, no business can really survive, with a one-time purchase, not even like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, right? They're trying to upgrade. They come out with new models all the time. So what you need to be thinking about then is, how are you going to get people coming back? How do the relationships you build with your customers, with your fans, with your followers, how do you engage those people to actually become advocates and loyal customers where they're coming back to you all the time? Next slide, please. So again, this is just me breaking that down a little bit further. But when you're thinking about your brand, when you're thinking about your strategy of how you show up, I want you to be thinking about the value you bring. And that can be as simple as your capability statement, if any of you have those, or if you haven't thought about capabilities yet, maybe it's an elevator pitch, right? It's, what do I do? Am I able to quickly assess and share what I do really well, how I super serve my audience or my customers? Am I showing this in a way consistently enough where people relate that image or that perception of what I do well with me or with my business? And then, do I have the right network in place that's helping amplify what I do, or do I need to build more relationships? Next slide, please. So a couple quick exercises you can do that can help you along this road. If we can skip ahead. Yes. There are questions you can ask yourself. So naturally, I come from the background of, I have a coaching business. I think all of the answers are within us. Now, granted, there's always upskilling we can do, but all of the answers are within us. So I want to know that you first understand for your business what it is that sets you apart. What is that value that you're driving? Then, do you have a clear understanding of how your audience perceives you, or even your close circle? When I was first getting started, one of the challenges to my growth was we made a pivot early on. So I started as a one-on-one coaching business, and then very early on, we pivoted to a service-based business that's B2B. So we're working with other large businesses. And because it wasn't as consumer friendly, a lot of people close to me didn't know what I did. And even on social, it wasn't clear at first. So what did that cost me? It cost me a lot of opportunities, and missed opportunities when you're running a business is impact to your bottom line. And that's not what we want. So it's really important for us to constantly be evaluating, because our businesses grow, they evolve, they pivot. Does our business now reflect, and how we're showing up on social, on different digital platforms, does it reflect where we are now? And then also people. Are you good at building relationships? This plays a role in your social, right? People want to engage with content that they like. They want to engage with people that they like. So what is it that you're good at? Are you really using your own voice or the voice of your business really well? Because this is another thing about social, is people read through things that appear inauthentic and they don't support them. So I'm going to give one example, and I'm going to throw it in the chat. But Jackie, who's on my team and is sharing my slides, I've been talking about this all day. So Jackie put a tweet yesterday where she talked about one of the programs that our company runs. And I didn't tell her to do it. If I would have, it probably would have come off as inauthentic. She was just scrolling through Twitter, and she has her own voice on Twitter. And she shared something about what our company does in her own voice, and it was authentic. And because of that, it went viral. So I'm going to just share the tweet with you so you all can just have a second to look at it. It's now gotten, I think the last time I checked, there were almost 9,000 retweets and over 41,000 likes. But the thing about social, again, I talk about not caring so much about the vanity metrics. So how we, for instance, are monetizing our work is not through likes and retweets. It's through people coming to our programs, right? And being able to monetize our audience. And all of our programs are free to our audience, but we, have relationships where we do need people to show up. And so this tweet got a lot of attention, but it did more than just get likes and retweets. It actually caused a bump in registration across all of the programs that we run. So we're hearing feedback from all of our different coaches that they're seeing all this uptick in registration. And again, that just comes back to the power of using your own voice, or when you're working with your team, even allowing them to be ambassadors and influencers for you in some ways. Okay, we're almost getting close to the question, so I got to keep it coming. But start putting your questions in the chat because we want to answer you. Okay, next slide, please. And I'll go through these really quickly. How you can get better at knowing what your value is, you need to get that feedback from your customers early on. Observe what they're praising you for. Is it your packaging? Is it because you're a diverse owned small business and they care about where their money goes? Do they want to support veteran business owners? Whatever the case might be, regularly ask for feedback from your customers. You can do this for free on social, right? So this could be tweets. This could be, I do polls in my Instagram stories every day, and I'll throw my Instagrams and Twitter and all that in the chat as well. But I do polls, and through doing polls or asking questions, start to understand things that people ask for, or what they want to hear more about, right? I look at the metrics. I look at the data to see which posts do better, what is driving more attention. And then for your own self, you can also take assessments to get a better understanding of what is your voice? What do you do really well? Next slide, please. We can skip this one. Next slide, please. Just moving along. Next one. So for perception, it's just really important. This is a Johari window. You all can Google it later. I won't spend too much time here because I want to spend most of the time on the Q&A. But why this is important is because there's parts that we don't know about ourselves, right? So there's this area where things are out in the open. There's a match between what we know about ourselves and what other people know about us. But then there are these blind spots that we have where other people are perceiving what we do in a certain way and we don't understand it. Then there's parts that we're shy about. We're hiding from, and we're not sharing it with our audiences. So it's really important for you to try to eliminate the facade and the blind spot as much as possible and really get a clear understanding of what the perceptions others have of you is. How are you connecting with your audience? What works, what doesn't work? So I want to throw that out there just for you to get clearer on how you're being perceived and for you to be conscious about thinking about putting as much as possible your authentic voice. We hear that a lot, right? The more authentic you show up, really the better it resonates with your audience. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last thing I will just share here is with people, you want to make sure you're building relationships, and this is everywhere. This is on social, but so much of what I say for your strategies online to be effective, they're always a result of what you're doing offline as well, right? So that consistency, that authenticity, all of those things matter. And also, people don't like you just cold, hard selling to them all the time. So even when you think about your strategy, it's what update people. You're a small business owner who's growing your business. What is that process like? Get them engaged in your success story. Get them engaged in your growth story. Are you sharing opportunities and resources? So now occasionally I do get a lot of offers for branded co-sponsored posts. And when I do, things I care about is it aligned with my brand? But also, is it something that'll be meaningful to the audience that I now know is primarily small business owners and working professionals? And so recently, a good example of this, we did sponsored posts with a company called Invoice to Go that provides resources for small business owners, and they're doing a giveaway. Check out my post, like it, run it up. It's on social, at Lena Darasaw. Jackie or someone can throw it in the chat. But they're giving away $200,000 to underrepresented groups to grow their business. So I say all that to say, when I am going to do something, I want to make sure it has value to the people around me, because that's what then makes them want to come back and do things for you. That's what makes them want to share your post. That's what makes them want to engage with you. And so when you need things, ask for it, but also offer as much as possible. Show a value for people who invest energy into you. Comment, like back, share back, right? Respond. And this is an area where I know as a small business owner, sometimes it can get really tough. There's a lot of hacks here. One thing I will say with LinkedIn, that's probably one of the platforms that has the most engagement for me. I have my admin, I just give her my login and she responds to DMs or whatever it's called, LinkedIn messages, right? She responds to all those to take off some of that, relieve me of some of the capacity that takes for me, right? So think about a system that works for you so you're not overwhelmed, but you're also remaining engaged with your audience. We can skip the next slide. Skip. And then, okay, so we can do this slide next. Yep. The last thing I would want you to think about is just a statement for how you're going to position yourself and why I think this is important. So remember, we have the formula. It's your value, your profit factor, the perception people have of you, and also the people. What are your relationships like with the people, your followers, your audience, your friends? How are they going to amplify it for you? But you also then need to use all of those different elements and come up with a positioning statement. And I think that this is really critical because especially as your business grows, so all of those opportunities, for example, I'm doing another one with another company that I didn't even know about. Shannon, who's my admin, evaluates these things for me. And she's like, okay, this seems aligned because she now knows me so well. She knows how and where I want my business to be positioned. Now I'm able to delegate better and I can get different opportunities on social for my business growth because everyone clearly understands our brand, right? And when I say everyone, I mean everyone on my team. So this also makes you more effective as a leader because people can help with that delegation and take some things off your plate. And so things that she always knows is when I get asked to do sponsored posts or anything like that, is it women owned? Is it diverse owned? Like these are questions that it has to fall into one of those categories. Does it support small business? Is it local? Is there a community avenue? And she knows the things that matter to me and what I want to share with my audience to keep me consistent and on brand. And that's how your audience really develops and continues to have that trust in what you do. Next slide, please. So the other thing I would say, if you don't have a framework, I called out, an elevator pitch or capability statement. Here are just a couple of things that can help really working on clarity, but also aligning yourself with known and established brands. Now, there's some tricks here because you don't want to do it so much that it overtakes your own brand, but especially as you're getting started, this can be a point for credibility, right? So I very happily share that we're a tier 1 supplier for Google and have worked with Google for 5 years because that's a way more known brand than C-Suite Coach. And it buys me credibility with my audience in every introduction and every sort of engagement, making sure you're tying back whoever you're speaking to or however you're engaging with your audience. So let's say you're doing a live, whatever, you're tying it back to what you do. When you do get opportunities, now there's an abundance of platforms. I did a Twitter space chat the other day. It was my first time ever doing that. There's Clubhouse where people are going viral. LinkedIn had tried with the spaces. People go live on LinkedIn now. They're going live on Instagram. So there's so many opportunities for you to show up. But if you're not showing up and aligning everything back to what you do, what is the point? So you want to make it a goal to always be remembered, but you always have to think, what is it you're going to be remembered for? And have you clearly communicated that to your audience? Okay. I see questions coming in the chat. I think these are the main things. We can share just a couple more. Do we have like a couple minutes? I'll share just a couple quick other tips for you that I think that are important. There are no rules. So I always say this because everyone's business is different. So your strategy has to be different. It's not going to be a prescription. I think a lot of times where business owners will get caught up is they'll think, okay, as a business owner, I need to make sure I'm posting 7 times a day on Pinterest, 5 times a day on Instagram, 4 times a day on Twitter. No. The only thing I think really is a rule is be consistent and be authentic, have a voice, try to match what's happening on the actual platform that you're using, right? So align with what the platform's intent is with how you show up on that platform. But beyond that, you can be really creative. one of my favorite campaigns, or I guess personalities on Twitter, are some of the fast food brands. Have any of you checked out Wendy's on Twitter? They're amazing. And not only do they just do the snapbacks and they engage in dialogue in Twitter in a really funny way, they even have a mixtape that they put out on Spotify with raps of like a Wendy's character basically dissing other fast food chains. And it's really funny, right? So it makes you engage with that brand more. And that's something that no one could have just come up with, if they were to try to just follow rules. They stepped out of their comfort zone. They were authentic in their voice and they tried something and it's worked for them, right? So this is what I want you to think about. Be willing to take risks. Don't feel like you have to do something a particular way. Really leverage your own voice and engage in some trial and error and see what works for you. Next slide, please. So just a couple of other thoughts that I do think will help pretty much anyone grow is when you are able to really share your thought leadership as much as possible. So if this is on Twitter, that can mean if there's a trending topic in your industry, are you a part of the conversation? Are you speaking about it? Are you tweeting about it? Are you retweeting? What can people turn to you for? Volunteer to live tweet an event. That's something that we do. So we attend other diversity events in our industry, and Jackie will often live tweet the event and make us a part of the conversation. Share your expertise as much as possible. Also, blogging, that's a form of social media. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to, blogspot.com or BlogHub or whatever they used to go to. You can blog on Medium and grow your presence. You can blog right on LinkedIn and grow your presence and engage, and then also contribute. That's really the point. You want to contribute to conversation, comment on things that are trending, leverage your voice as much as possible. If you are going to show up as a thought leader, if you're going to speak on panels, if you're going to host, if you're going to moderate, one thing that I know has happened already is every time I do a speaking engagement, guess what we do? Jackie or somebody else, someone on the team who is attending, we'll take a screenshot and we'll tweet about it. We'll post about it. Now you're seeing a pattern. Now you know, anyone who's following, okay, she's spoken with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. She's spoken for NMSDC or whichever, WeBank, whoever. And now it's like, this is someone I can come to. It's creating that, remember we talked about perception of who you can come to when you're looking for a thought leader in a particular area. Okay, and I think this is pretty much where is a good place to stop. I have just a couple more screenshots of how you can contribute, but we don't need to share those. I think we would best serve the rest of our 25-ish minutes if we took some of your questions, because I see quite a lot coming through. So thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing that. And I want to turn it over to some questions, both from you all, but also from Elizabeth.
Yeah, Angelina, thank you so much for that presentation. And also thank you so much for, after the event is over, going back in and sharing that you participated in the event. Because as the person on our end of the social media management, I really, really appreciate that. We always appreciate when speakers are amplifying our content, because as you said, that's super important. I think this question's come up in the chat, and it's something that I also wanted to talk to you about personally. I'm wondering, there are just so many social media platforms now. And, like you mentioned Clubhouse before, and then we all know, like I have a 10-year-old son, so he's always on TikTok. So as a business owner, right, like how do you decide which of those platforms you need to be on? Because you can't be on all of them, right? So what are some things that you should take into account when you're making that choice about where to have a presence?
Yeah, so many different thoughts here. So one, there are some of the choices you make, and this goes to self-awareness. Remember I said understanding what you do well, understanding what's comfortable for you, really knowing your voice. There are some platforms that are going to be a bit easier. For example, for you, based on who you are and how you like to show up. A good example of this, I get a little stressed out by Twitter sometimes. I will be honest, because people can push back a lot. Something, for example, even just Jackie's tweet that went viral. I've read some of the comments and the retweets and people's opinions, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's really negative, and it can just throw off my mood in particular. If you're not bothered by that, good for you. I know Jackie's great at Twitter. It's not my favorite all the time. Instagram is more photos. I love to take photos. I love to engage. I'm great at that. I love doing the stories, lives, whatever. So that is a more comfortable platform. So I think the first piece is for a business owner, especially if you're not at the stage yet where you have a team that can run all of your social channels, and maybe you're only running one channel. So I have my personal channels, but we also have company channels, and I have someone else that runs the company channels. Jackie runs the company channels, right? So that gives me a buffer. If you only have yourself, pick what you're naturally more inclined to, but then also you do have to adapt as the rules change. So for example, Instagram launched Reels to compete with TikTok. I don't like Reels. They're not natural for me. I'm not a video editor. I don't like doing all those things, but the way the platform is going is they push content more forward if you are leveraging Reels. So what does that mean? I had to adapt, and you have to be willing to do that if you want to stay relevant on that platform.
Those are all really good points. It sounds like sometimes you do have to come outside of, what makes you comfortable in order to sort of beat the algorithms a little bit too, because as we know, that is how all of these social platforms do function. So thank you for that answer. One thing I was hoping we could kind of drill down a little bit deeper on, or maybe just get you to sort of like rehash some of the things you said before, because this has also come up in the audience Q&A here, which is, you mentioned engagement and getting customers to really engage with your brand on social media. So maybe you could just share, I know you said polls, but you also said some other really interesting things. Do you think you could just kind of like sum that up? What are some of your favorite strategies for getting folks to engage with you on these social platforms?
Yeah, so I think again, the storytelling aspect, and it's going to vary just again based on what your brand is, if you're doing a product-based business or a service-based business. But I would say for any business owner, don't discount that people really like to engage with the how-to. There's a podcast on NPR, I think it's called How To. I don't remember what it's called, but where basically they go through how things are made. I think that's what it is. People love to know the story behind something. So if you're doing something, be willing to share a little bit of that story, because that actually, in my experience, has done a great job of engaging people in the process, allowing them to ask questions, helping to see a different side. So I follow mostly business owners because that's my world. And things I see that always just make me really excited is when they're showing their packaging process, how they're putting their packages together, getting you involved. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, that looks really nice. I want to open up a package like that. Now I want to go buy it, right? Or if it's a service-based business, talking about some of the clients and what that process has been like can be really interesting as well. So I think engaging people in the story of what your business is and how it's getting done, because people at the end of the day, it's just like if you were working corporate, they say people like people. They want to know who they're working. Be afraid to share that. But again, I also think polls, I think the questions function, I'm now talking about Instagram. If you are wanting to get feedback or something, or thoughts on something, engaging people in questions can be really interesting. So they have all of these cool pop-ups when you swipe up on Instagram, where there's these different widgets you can play with. Don't be afraid to play with some of those. And I would say, the polls also work on Twitter. There's polls on LinkedIn. So you can leverage a lot of these same principles across different platforms.
Those are all really excellent tools to recommend. I think it's like, to sum up what you were just saying, it sounds like, as a brand, it can be really tempting to just constantly push your own messaging, but it's important to kind of take a step back and ask your audience to engage with you. You have to open up that invitation in order to use that engagement.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, going back a little bit to using more than one social platform, which I'm sure most small business owners are doing now. Somebody has asked here, Elaine, thank you for your question, Elaine. She wants to know, if you're publishing content across multiple platforms, Do you think it matters if it's all being posted at the same time, or should you kind of like spread it out? How do you do that?
Yeah, so a lot of different thoughts here. One thing I think about too is all of these different platforms have insights tools, and that can be really powerful if you haven't set up your accounts as business accounts or creator accounts. For example, on Instagram, you have to set it up that way to get access to the tools. On other platforms, sometimes the insights just show up. On Facebook, for instance, on your business pages, you're able to see insights. So anyway, I say that to say, leverage the insights of these platforms to the extent that you can to get as much knowledge about your audience, right? Because where your audience is really engaging with you, the times of day, the days of the week could be really different from one platform to the next. If you're launching something, so say you're dropping a new journal or a new shoe or something like that, then it could be useful to have a tweet, a post, and everything go out at the same time. But for the most part, if you're just building relationships with your audience, you want to work within what you've established as when your audience is most likely going to engage back or receive your content well.
Yeah, that is an excellent answer. And I think it slides right into the next question that I have for you, which is really about the kinds of tools that perhaps you use personally or that you're aware of. And the reason those two things are connected in my brain is because for Co, we use a platform called Later for Instagram publishing. And I know for that, they analyze all of your previous posts, and then they tell you which post got the most engagement by day and time of day. So to Elaine, to your point, there are social media tools in addition to working directly on the platform that do that. But now I will let Angelina answer the question. So what are some tools that you might recommend for small business owners?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So many ways to answer this question. One, all of you put your answers in the chat too. But one of the things I think is really important is knowing, again, what you have bandwidth and capacity for. So one tool that I use, which is really simple, we use Google Slides, and we do social calendars for every month, and we plan before the month is coming or towards the end of the month. Now, there are some things you can't plan for, like a trending topic, but there are some things that happen every year, like certain holidays or Hispanic Heritage Month or, I don't know, National Puppy Day, whatever. So when you plan in advance, because that can be, I think, one of the biggest stressors on business owners is trying to, it's day of, you're running your business, you have packages to get out, clients to meet with, and now it's like, and I have to be consistent on how I show up on social. Having some of that planning in advance really helps. So I do recommend everyone think about creating some sort of social calendar for yourself. And I want you to know, again, I just use Google Slides. You don't have to buy a special tool or pay for a membership somewhere. That's one thing you can do to just help ease some of the planning. To the other, so, and then there's also scheduling tools. So I can't remember, I think it might've been Elaine who raised the question of, do I post at the same time? A lot of the scheduling tools, like a Hootsuite, for example, will, if they link with all of your different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they will allow you to also change the time. So you could have similar content, but have it go out at different times. That's really powerful. And again, insights. Many of them will even have some sort of function where you can look back and see, okay, I scheduled 8 tweets in the last couple of days. Which ones did the best? What resonated? Was it the time of day? And they'll give you ideas for how you can improve your strategy for when you should be posting. Yep, Canva has scheduling too. Oh, Jackie is going in. Jackie is really, she should be up here. Jackie has all the skills and tips. So if she posts in the chat, you want to read everything she's saying. This is our viral Twitter moment right now, okay? So
I'm
Facebook allows you to schedule on IG and Facebook for free.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm calling Jackie after this. I can't wait to chat with her one-on-one. So, okay, where are we gonna go next? Bill, this is another question from the audience. This is a great question, especially for small business owners. So how are you balancing your organic posting with your paid social posts?
Yeah, so I think for us, when we think about paid posts, it usually is about something that we are trying to promote or that we want to drive more attention to. So for example, in June, late June, beginning of July, that's when we launched our C-Suite Coach Network, which was our first B2C program or product since we've launched. Mostly when we're working, or how we drive revenue, is we work with large businesses and they purchase coaching services or program design, program management services for us. But what we got was a lot of feedback. And this is what's really interesting too, customer feedback on social. I get DMs, we have people messaging us. The name of the company is C-Suite Coach. So a lot of people naturally thought we could provide coaches for them. And we do provide coaches, but we provide them to large companies. But we saw that there were a lot of individuals that were constantly reaching out. I need a coach to develop my business. I need a coach to develop myself at work. And we had all these executive coaches that we might staff at a Google, at a Wix, at an Omnicom, wherever. And we said, well, if we have capacity, like, we could leverage these coaches to work with individuals. And so that was something that was new for us. It was B2C, where customers actually are buying packages to work with our customers. They can vet through the profiles on our website and buy packages. And because of that, because it was new and it was something where we actually wanted a different type of attention from our audience, we launched paid campaigns across different platforms, on YouTube, on social media. So we looked at, where we wanted to connect with our audience and did paid for that. Organic posting, yes, we do organic posts about it too, but our organic posts are also just about different events that we're throwing. What is our business focused on? Celebrating different days, as I mentioned, the social calendar, different holidays, different cultural moments. So our paid posting usually for us is more about driving value back to something where we want people to engage or convert someone from viewing something to actually buying something.
Awesome. So one of the things that you mentioned before that I was really curious about hearing your strategy for. So on social media, as we know, especially if you're a smaller business, you don't have a ton of followers, you want to make sure that your message is being received by as many people as possible and that you're reaching new customers. So obviously one way to do that is to pay for posts, right? But you would also mention the word amplification, which anyone who works with me will tell you is one of my favorite buzzwords.
I love it.
And so, I'm just curious, do you have any tips for business owners who are looking to organically amplify their posts? And what's an appropriate way to reach out and ask folks to help you kind of get the word out?
Okay, so I'll start with the don'ts and then I'll give you a do. So the don'ts, things I've seen that tend to not be received really well is just tagging a whole bunch of people, more so on Facebook, in things that aren't relevant to them or that they didn't ask for, right? And I think that can be very bold and it can be very courageous, but sometimes it's not received well because maybe that's not how the person was intending to use the platform, or they didn't want to engage that way. What I think you always want as a business owner is for people to want to share your things without you asking for them. So how do you make that happen? Again, sharing some of your growth story. So a great example of this happened just yesterday. I have a good friend named Tessa who launched a venture capital firm called Capitalize. It's something that we've known, everyone in her circle. So she started a newsletter when she was launching, and we've been following along her journey. She sent regular updates. The launch day was actually yesterday. So she gave sample copy and she explained how amplifying this could make a huge difference in her business and what it would mean at launch day. And guess what she got? Tons of reposts, tons of people naturally sharing it, congratulating her and engaging with her without her having to ghost tag all these people. So now, yes, you can ask and it's totally fine, engage your circle and ask for permission, but you do want to make sure you're giving them the opportunity to opt in without you opting them in for themselves. So that's one thing I think is great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, when people are involved or as you're growing, if you, for example, another great tip and trick, if you have a podcast or if you're doing some sort of clubhouse, can you bring someone along And make sure you have value to offer back though. Don't just, because people like to exchange value, but can you ask someone who has a bigger audience than you to do it? Can you bring them, an opportunity, a sponsorship or something that brings it back to them so that they want to do it, but make it compelling, but ask people with a bigger audience to do things with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are both really excellent points. And I love that you always go back to being authentic. So I think sometimes people feel like there might be, some golden ticket that's gonna like be the answer to everything on social, and really it should always just come back to how can I just be authentically myself and build authentic relationships with other people. And that's a great approach.
And I'll share just one more thing. So like, for example, I've been drinking my water the whole time I'm here, and my water bottle is from a company called Healthish. And it's a small business, and it's about sustainability and trying to move people away from plastic, which does align with my value set, right? So again, I mentioned I have personal brands and then we have the business brand, but there's a lot of overlap because I am the founder of my company. And one of the things that will happen is people will send me free products. And if it aligns with my brand, I'm always just happy I got something for free. So it might have cost them maybe $20 to send this to me. But when I posted about it, I had 6 different people like within a minute. Oh my God, I want that water. It's a water bottle. I want that water bottle. So I also think don't be afraid to send people products for free. It's like a sponsorship. You can write it off as a business expense. And then you've potentially got someone who's now amplified your brand through you sharing something for free.
So you're telling me you're an influencer, is what you're telling me, Angelina. Loud and clear. I think that we have time for one more question. Okay, so let's see. In addition to obviously everything that you just said, are there other resources that you would suggest for small businesses as they go about building their social media strategy?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I also will throw in there that I love these topics, and even though it's not necessarily the service that we offer, it's just something that's really interesting to me. And so I have gotten, as I mentioned, Google Ads certified. I've also done Facebook's Blueprint program. I've taken courses on LinkedIn. So I'm throwing that out there to say, we are busy. I know you are all busy. You are running a business and maybe a family and maybe 1,000 other things, but you have to take time to develop yourself. And even if you're going to outsource it, just so you can be more knowledgeable about who you're outsourcing to so that you don't get, punked or have a bad experience. And so to the extent that you can, take some of those free courses that are available. We already shared the Grow with Google Digital Coaches program. Facebook has self-paced courses you can take through their program Blueprint. They also have other programs. LinkedIn has self-paced courses. So I would look at some of the free resources that the social tools that you're already using offer. The Facebook ones obviously will tell you about Instagram and how to do that as well, how to look at your metrics better. And it's just good to have that base level knowledge. So I would say the first tool I would offer would be some self-education for sure. Other tools, I think Jackie threw in there the importance of Canva, also for designing content. And I would just kind of integrate the same way I mentioned leveraging a social calendar. Leverage your smartphone or your smart device to do some planning in advance, and know that just when you take a photo or when you have an idea, you don't have to post it right away. I make notes in my phones about things that I might want to tweet about a week from now, right? Or things I might take a picture and want to post it a lot later. So start to just get in the habit of gathering content up that you can share at later dates so that you're not feeling rushed when you're like, oh my goodness, it's been a month and I haven't engaged with my audience, right? You do want to have a strategy for collecting content so you can build that relationship.
Excellent. Those are all wonderful resources. Thank you for sharing them. So we only have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to keep this really quick, unless there is there any other things that you want to address before we do that?
I'll just say it one more time because I want to make sure it doesn't get lost. Your online strategy. So social is just one piece of your online strategy, right? And even newsletters are really considered a piece of social too. So it's so broad. MailChimp is kind of considered social media. But anyway, your offline strategy and your online strategy should always be connected, and you should always be thinking about how does this add value back to the bottom line. Now, granted, there are things that you can do and it may not be direct. I do want to encourage you to try things, but you also want to make sure that everything that you're trying is for the purpose of growing your revenue at the end of the day. And I think that's one thing that separates, you threw out the term influencer. That's one thing that separates business owners from influencers, because we want to make sure that as much as social is amazing and important, that we're getting people off of those platforms that we don't own back to our businesses to purchase our products and engage in our services.
I mean, way to end that on a high note, because I really can't think of a more important thing to end with than once you have people's engagement and their attention, do something with it that can really help you, grow your bottom line. I think that's the crux of it. So thank you. Angelina, yeah, I just want to thank you so much. Your expertise was wonderful and really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Love the chamber.
Great. So just to our audience, I just wanted to remind you that tomorrow's programming, we're going to kick off again at 12 p.m. Eastern with our general session, which is featuring the U.S. Small Business Administrator. So that makes it very special. We'll also have a very special small business update live from Washington, D.C. with Neil Bradley, who is the Chief Policy Officer for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We're getting so many thank yous. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. We're also going to have many more skill building workshops tomorrow beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern, and our Dream Big Awards ceremony, which you do not want to miss. It's always very inspirational and exciting. That starts at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So you can pour yourself a drink and please come to that. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody. Angelina, thank you so much again. It was great seeing your face again. Bye, everybody. Thank you.